G'day, guys. It's coffee time, which generally means I'll get that out. Preview or review time on my blue heaven, and I'm going to just take a bit of a look at the match sim against the Pies at Icon Park on Friday. This is more thoughts and observations rather than a full-on sort of review of the game. Difficult conditions, 11 o'clock in the morning. Quite sure we'll be playing many games at 11 o'clock in the morning. Not sure we'll be playing many games in sort of 32-degree heat as well. So you take all those things into consideration. Well, I do anyway. I think they're important. You can't control the weather, can't control the conditions. But, yeah, they were challenging, just looking at it. Bright sunshine. As much as it's a good skiing day, it's always difficult to play football when the sun's out like that, and it's fairly windy and it's blowing a bit of a gale. It's a training session really, and that's the way I viewed it. I was just really in no position at all to get excited or disappointed, and that's the way I viewed it. It's such a long and brutal season, and we know a fair bit about our football team already. And I don't think one practice game or match sim against Collingwood is going to probably answer many questions. I think when we look back in 6 months' time, we're not going to look back at this match sim game. Although I think it's good just to sort of just reflect on some of the things that we noticed or I noticed from this game. And I think both teams, fielded what they thought to be their strongest teams. They had a few out, but we probably had more out. But the fact is we've got long-term injuries and we can't play those guys. And the guys that we didn't play who may come back in the next week or two, some of those are, players that are consistently on the sidelines and can't be relied upon. That's facts. So let's not fuck around here. We're talking about, let's get this bloke out, let's get this bloke back. But yeah, I mean, that is a concern in itself. So I think we put out on the park a team which I don't think will be our round one team, but, there's some guys there, young guys, I suppose, that, are in contention. You don't play in a match sim game unless you're in contention. I can't see them all playing, but maybe one does. Maybe one does. We're just going to have to wait and see. And evenly matched teams as well. I just can't really. I can't sort of think who's better out of these two teams. And I think that was on show last year in the two games that these clubs played. Unbelievable games of football, which could have gone either way. And it was probably just more Collingwood's ability to be a little bit braver. Does that make them a better team? Possibly. Probably makes them a little bit further advanced, a bit more of a belief in what they're doing. But as far as talent, personnel, I think it's very hard to split these two teams. So that was good in itself, with two different types of game plans as well, as I think. And I think this was good as well because you get to be challenged by the things that Collingwood do really well. And I think they were challenged by what we do really well. And I'll get to that in a minute. I looked at this game and just thought, fuck. And I did think he did a hell of a lot, but I love our midfield and what we've been able to add over the last, say, 12 months or so. And when they're all together, and we still haven't got Walsh back, but when they're all together, you can just see how reliable and consistent this, 4 to 5 players are, and what they can do. And it just takes you back to the first half of last year when we had them all together on the park. But I still think there's a layer missing. And is that layer or player at someone like a Jordan De Goey? And it's very hard to get, someone of the calibre of a Jordan De Goey or a Patrick Dangerfield or a Dustin Martin, someone with genuine speed and goal-kicking ability who can break a game open. with genuine X factor. So, maybe that's what they had in mind for David Cunningham. Um, yeah, maybe he was the one. You know, who knows? Who knows? But anyway, um, Darcy Moore and Jeremy Howe, marking ability in their back half, that intercept mark and their run and gun and their pinpoint kicking, Jamie Elliott in their front half. They're all players that I look at and go, geez, I'd love to have them in our team because I think they could just add something that we haven't got essentially at the moment, or something which we can rely on week in, week out. And there's no doubt Collingwood would look at our players and think exactly the same thing. It's a long season. It's a long, long season. And we know we fell agonisingly short last year. And there were reasons behind that, personnel reasons. But we already know a fair bit about this group. And we haven't added a lot. Blake Acres comes in, obviously drafted as well. Some young guys played on Friday. I'll get to those in a minute. But, yeah, we haven't added a lot. So we're really banking on the evolution of the players we already have and the improvement. Improvement individually and improvement of structure, of game plan, and the belief in one another, which at times fell down last year. There's no doubt when we were up and going. In games last year, we looked $1 million, but when we were challenged and questions were asked of us, that's when we started to falter. And that's the sign of a really good team, a team that can respond. The game's not always going to be played on your terms. I just think that's the thing I'll be looking for. None of these questions were answered in this match sim. I'm not taking into consideration a 10-point win. That's a positive, really. It really wasn't. As much as it was real, it wasn't real. The biggest thing that stood out for me in this game, from I suppose a structural point of view, was that patch in the second quarter. There's no doubt that our midfield was on top for large periods of this game. Ability to get their hands on the ball in the centre of the ground around stoppages, where I thought we were far superior. Just that quartet of players. We speak of Cripps, Hewitt, Chera, and Kennedy. We're all good. We're all good and reliable. It was good to see. So I thought we had control of that. I didn't think the rucks in particular had a big say on the game. TDK looked promising in patches. Murkoff he's well off the level at the moment. And Cameron and Cox, I think they're going to be a pretty good combination for the Pies. Ability to take marks around the ground, go forward and kick goals. But I thought it was just the work of that midfield that probably kept us. Well, that kept us in the game, but sort of made us probably the better team on the day. But that patch in the second quarter was something that I suppose needs to be highlighted and will be highlighted. No doubt about that. I just think, 5 goals in succession after having control and taking control in the first quarter, and almost not being able to get our hands on the pill and change or try and change momentum. After the 5 goals were kicked, we were able to get a little bit of the game back in our own terms. But it's almost like in a real game, the damage can be done. The shit can be kicked out of you when the opposition pile on that many goals in a row. And what I noticed was, I don't know if it was team defence. I don't know if it was, our back 6, 7 were lagging too far back. But we know Collingwood we just know they're essentially a corridor-based team. Whether they come out wide, but they always look to hit the 45 up and come inboard to that really, really dangerous part of the ground, and they do it so well. And I'm talking coming forward, in between the centre circle and centre half forward. And the amount of times in the first part or the first half of that second quarter, they were able to find a free man almost on the centre half forward line by themselves, or even a hit up forward. It was able to take a mark, sometimes contested, but sometimes uncontested. And I reckon at least 4 of their 5 goals came from that part of the ground. So that to me, and I saw this last year as well, it, to me is just something's amiss. Yeah, something's amiss. So I don't know. I can't put a finger on what's going wrong there, but that's something that needs to be improved. And, like Collingwood aren't the only team that do it, but they probably do it as well as anyone. And I thought they really exposed us. And if that was a home and away game, that could have been all over. That could have been all over right there. So there was definitely a breakdown. And it's the way they play, though. Collingwood, they're a very brave team on transition from their back half. They have defenders who really challenge the opposition, whether it's Quainer or Noble or Maynard. And they've got exceptional guys who can kick the ball with depth and precision, Maynard, Howe, etc. So I just didn't think we were switched on, and there was definitely a breakdown. I'll just go. So that was the thing that stood out for me the most. From our perspective, was there a lot of change in the way we played? No, I think we're going to be a high possession team. I think there's probably less of a focus on us moving through the corridor. I think we'll try and improve that and try and be a little bit quicker from our back half. Whether, though, we have the personnel regularly on the park to be able to do that is a big question for me. So, as I mentioned, midfield, very solid, but lacks, for me, still an extra dimension. Love, Cripps, Kennedy, Hewitt, Chera, all of what they're doing. Chera, for the one, for me, is the close watch for me. Can he essentially take his game to another level? He seems like the bloke with the class on the outside, but I didn't think his kicking was great on Friday. I didn't think it was a little bit up and under. He's nice on both sides of the body. So that's a close watch for me, particularly if he's going to be an outside player. Love the game of Kennedy. I just think he's the one who will get under the guard of the opposition. He can go forward, and he looks fit. We want to keep him on the park. I just think he's so important for us. He really does complement both Cripps and Hewitt as well, but we've got to keep those 4 together with Walsh. But who's the extra layer? I would have loved to have seen Cunningham in full flight, with 2.5 extra years under his belt, and then coming in and, with that explosive pace and relatively good kick, can go forward. So we don't have him. Who do we push up to be the extra man at the stoppage? We know Walsh will come back into the team, but that man has to be Fisher. I can't believe some people are questioning Fisher's role in the team, but it has to be Fisher. He adds a different type of look with his left foot. He's improved his engine. He's classy. I think he puts his head over it. He's not always super consistent, but it's a difficult role to play. It's a difficult role to play when you're not in the crux of the midfield. I think wings. I think that was a plus. I think Akers will add a lot. I don't think he adds a lot of polish. He's more along the lines of, say, a Camden McIntosh at Richmond, and I think that is good. Or a Menengola at Geelong. He kicks the ball with depth, not so much precision. Sometimes his execution, his decision-making can let him down. I don't necessarily think that will improve given he's 26, 27 years of age. But I think if we can get him to sort of, he will buy into the game plan. If he can 90% of the time make good decisions, he's going to be an excellent player for us. I really do. Not a superstar, but he's going to be a ball winner and what he adds, which we didn't have with O'Brien and Cottrell, who, spent a lot of time on the wings last year, is strength and size. He stands up in a tackle. He can push back defensively and take a mark, and he's a big body. He's not scared. He's not intimidating. I'm not saying the other boys are, but when you're a slighter frame, you can tell the difference. You can tell the difference with a Blake Acres compared to a Lockie O'Brien or a Matthew Cottrell or some of the smaller types on the wing. So I thought O'Brien was terrific. It's only a practice game, but his body changed last year. He looks like a mature footballer. He's a lot stronger in the contest, and he looks confident. And his kicking was probably the best I've seen it. Well, it was one game, but his kicking was good. It was good under pressure, and he makes pretty good decisions. And he's at that time in his career now where he's mature. He's surprised me at the moment. O'Brien, he's definitely for me a lock for round one on that wing. He's still got a lot to prove. You're talking. I think what was it last year? 3 times he was dropped last year. Lockie O'Brien. So yeah. But I think that was a positive out of that game, getting the wings nutted without Cottrell there. Obviously, Holland's played a bit of time there as well. I think we've got a few little concerns in our back half, and it's around availability. I just feel it's going to be really difficult for us if we can't get McGovern onto the park. I really do. Just because he's such a good kick, and he will be that third tall, and he's such a good mark and intercept grab. I just don't necessarily see that in Lewis Young and Jacob Wiedering's game. And when there's only 2 key defenders, it makes it really hard to have that intercept defender. So it could be a combination of all 3 given matchups. But at the moment, when you go in with 2 key defenders, Young and Wiedering, they're virtually playing a lockdown role, and you're so limited. And I see McGovern probably more of a benefit to us than a Marchbank, although, there could be a spot there for Marchbank as well, but they're both so fucking unreliable, and I think Williams, although frustrating, is a huge out. I mean, we talked about, Noble and Quainer being a run at the opposition and take the game on. Williams was that player for us. Didn't always use it that well, but that ability to break the lines and put a team defence under pressure. He's a big out. So, Newman was good, really good, and Doc, they're foot soldiers. They're foot soldiers. They're not necessarily those guys that get it and run. Sard is the one now. He's the one. I don't know. I just feel he had a great year last year, but I feel like he's really sort of worked on the defensive side of his game, and we don't necessarily see that explosiveness. Am I wrong there? I don't know. And I'm not taking. He was quiet on Friday. I'm not taking that into account, but I just don't see that explosiveness from Sard anymore. We're seeing him be such a fierce defender, and half contests. Yeah, so that's a big one. And we're going to rely on, what we're going to rely on now. There's no Jordan Boyd for a period of time. And we've got someone like Chincotta coming into the team. He did okay, but, we're going to ask Chincotta or Cowan, a first-year player, to come in and take that role on, because essentially that's the role they're going to play. That's the role they're going to play, and that's a big ask. That's a big ask. So I've got some concerns of our defence. I think forwards the same. Harry and Charlie have now been together full season together, and they'll work better and better together. Harry's ability to push up the ground, Charlie's ability to push up the ground. But who's the third tall? Who's the dangerous third tall? That hybrid? I don't see it as Jack. I really don't. I know he's the man, and he's at that age, 26 years of age, and he's, now a big body, and I just don't see it. I just don't see him ever being able to execute and have a nous for the big sticks. And if he's not going to be that second ruckman, which I don't think is sustainable, I question. I don't question his place in the team at the moment. I just question whether that's going to be good enough for us. that's going to be good enough. I don't know. I don't know whether it is or not. Because I see someone like Jack as a Gunston. That's how I see it. You know, he's hardworking. He can be creative at times. He works hard. Jesus Christ. You know, you're not 17 goals last year he kicked. You know, it's just not good enough. And then there's the question marks on all our small forwards. We didn't have Durden, we didn't have Owies, but they have yet to establish themselves. They have, particularly Durden has some real potential. Motlop potential, but second year player. Honey, you know, he did some nice things, but there's a lot of unknown. There's a lot of unknown. And then you look at someone like Jack Martin, for example, and you think, well, he could be the bloke that could come in, okay, and play that role. But he's another one like McGovern who just can't regularly get on the park. And you need consistency. You need these players to play together. Yeah. And the last one is just health-wise. We've been stretched. We're being stretched, and it puts an enormous amount of pressure on the list. It really does. On the VFL list, our ability to have any real structure in process down there, because you're having fill-in players consistently come in. You've got to go to the mid-season draft, and you're bringing players in. And the guys you want there to be really looking at the moment, they're just not there, and they're consistently not there, and it's just bloody disappointing. And I don't know, and I can't answer this. And I can't get too excited at the moment until I start to see us a bit healthier. I really do, and I understand the depth's got better, but I just think if we're going to be realistic with this. And fair income with this, we need a healthy and strong list. And at the moment, it's something where I'm not going into the season. I'm hard on the club. Don't get me wrong, I'm hard on the club, and I demand success. I demand it because it's time. It's time. But I'm not going into this year with a hell of a lot of expectations based on the fact that we just can't seem to get a healthy list onto the park. It's as simple as that. Anyway, we've got the Swans coming up. Another chance to take an eye or run an eye over what we're doing at the moment. And then obviously the big one against the Tigers in round one. Speak soon.